Good evening. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Inspiration webinar. Inspiration Software is the embroidery software line of G7 Solutions and designs in machine embroidery. Our Inspiration Software line includes My Block Piecer, My Quilt Embellisher, Perfect Embroidery Pro, Perfect Stitch Viewer, Word Art and Stitches, and My Quilt Planner. Tonight's webinar is Combine and Conquer. We have a wonderful team assisting us tonight. Inspiration Tech Support Team, Nancy R., Catherine A., Chris L., Dory N. And I would like to present you to our Inspiration Consultant, Tamara Evans.
Thank you, Dory. I appreciate that. And thank you all for coming. And our topic tonight, as Dory mentioned, is Divide and Conquer. Actually, it's not. It's Combine and Conquer. See, I spent all this time figuring out how to spell divide. It's combine. The normal phrase is divide and conquer. But what we're going to talk about tonight is the combine tool. So let me just delete that little comment. And I'm going to show you most everything in my Quilt Embellisher. And then we will, I will point out what you can also do in My Block Piecer and in My Quilt Planner. And of course, you have the same options in PEP and then some. So some of the ways that we use the Combine tool is to work around tools that we may not have in here, like remove overlaps and some other things that were designed for digitizing and may sound confusing. So we just keep it really simple. I have found that the Combine tool is really one of my favorites. And we'll start off really simply with artwork to begin with. I have two artwork shapes on here. I have a circle and I have a square. And of course these were made with our artwork tool up here on the top. If I click on the down arrow, I can select a rectangle or an ellipse or a triangle or a diamond. And any of those shapes, or a pin, if I just wanted to draw, well, let's not do that one right now. Draw a shape, I could do that either freehand or with a simple draw. But you see here, let me show you a couple of things that you can do with the Combine tool right off the bat. I have a circle and a square. And if I put this circle in the center of the square, and I could even go so far as to align it. If I select both the circle and the square that's behind it, then my Align tools up here on the second row of icons show up. So I could align it horizontally in the center, or vertically in the center, and horizontally in the center, at the bottom, or at the top, or the left, or the right, or let's just put it back in the middle. Now, when I do a combine, if I select at least two objects, so I'm going to drag a box around these, so it selects both of them, and you can tell they're selected because you've got these lines running through them, okay? Then you see my Combine tool up at the top is illuminated, so that means I can use it. I could group them, which means it'll keep them together regardless of what I do. Let me do that first so we can see the difference. Here's group. That means I can't select one without the other. Over here in my sequence view, if I want just the red artwork, I can't select just it. And the group tool does a lot of things for us, but it doesn't change the objects. It just keeps them together. The Combine tool, however, is much different. With both objects selected, either Control A or drag a box around them or select them over on the right in the sequence box, when I select the Combine, it changes what's on my screen. It actually combines the circle with the square. And now we have a circle inside of the square, and it has kept a single color, in this case blue. It's usually the color on the bottom that it keeps, but I can't guarantee you that that is always true. But it will go to one color, and now you see over here in the sequence view, there's only one item, and it's a piece of artwork that is a square with a circle in the middle of it. Okay, now let's continue with artwork. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to undo, and I'm going to show you a different way that combine works. If I take, oops, let me just select, I have them grouped, so I have to ungroup right up here. Now, I'm going to select just the red circle, and I'm going to move it over here. And now, if I hold my control key down, I can also select the blue background, or I can drag a box around it like I did before, just another way of selecting everything, and click the Combine tool. Now that creates a different effect because it only combines what is overlapped. Okay? It's very much like a remove overlap tool when you're dealing with a fill or something like that, maybe in Perfect Embroidery Pro or some other digitizing software that you might have that removes overlap. It's very much this way, but in addition to removing it, it makes the resulting element one thing, one object. Instead of having a circle and a square, now I have a combination circle and square. Okay, so it's one object now. I can't split it up anymore. It's just one thing. But let me show you if I do not an undo, but a break apart. Let me show you what happens. This is kind of the opposite of combine, but it really doesn't take you back exactly to where you were. So if I break apart, now I have a square and I have a circle, but you notice my circle is now blue instead of red. So I can easily change that back to red if I want to. And now it's behind the square, so I can move it to the front by coming up here to my tools and move to the front. Or I could leave it in the back. It matters not. But that is the break apart tool. Now, let me show you another way you could use this. If you wanted to create a really odd shape, or if you're trying to create a block, I can take and copy by right-clicking. I can copy this square that I have selected, and then I'm going to right-click again and say paste. And I'm going to move it up here so that they're stacked like that. And I'll zoom out a little bit. And let's center origin so we have the best view. I may even make my circle a little bigger. To me, this looks kind of like an art quilt. So if you wanted to create one, you absolutely could from doing this. Now, let's select all of them again, Control A, or drag a box around them, or select them over here on the right-hand side in the sequence box. And now let's combine those three elements and see what happens. And there you go. Now this time it picked the red because the red was on the bottom. But it makes it one color, and this is one element. And it's kind of cool looking. So there are some ways to combine artwork to create different shapes and effects that you can do. And one really practical way of doing this is if you want to quilt around something. Say you have an applique or a design or something in a block. Let's see how we would make this a practical application. I'm going to open up a new page up here in the top right-hand corner. Oh, sorry, that's my left. And click New Page. And let's bring in a block that we have in our quilt blocks, because we already have the artwork done there. So let's select, let's just go to a basic block. And let's do, well, The square would be a really basic one, but that's kind of boring. So let's do a diamond in a square, which isn't much more complicated, but we're not going to worry about size right now. I just want to show you how to do some fun stuff with this. One is we have this square in the center. And if this was actually a quilt block that we had made and we had put a design in here, maybe an embroidery design or a threadwork design, something like that, let's add a design to it. So I'm going to come over to my quilt library. Now again, before I go any further, this is just artwork on my screen. Okay, just like if I had drawn it like I did before with the circle and square. It's just artwork, and I can change the colors of it. If I want to make that red and the other blue blocks a different color, I can do that. Or I could put fabric in there if I want to. But we won't complicate it too much right now. Let's go to some designs. And let's see what our free designs were in January. We do have some cute ones in here. Let's do, and I haven't downloaded all of them, let's do this little cherub and put it in here. We'll get ready for Valentine's Day. Now, as you know, with Quilt Embellisher, we can certainly, and with any of our programs, you can pull in any design in any machine format, and you can resize it, and it will recalculate the stitches. And I think I want to eyeball the center of this, maybe rather than actually center it. But you could, using your alignment tools. Now, we have this little cherub in the middle. You can look at it in 3D, and he's there, and there's, or she, it. Anyway, it's behind, it's going to stitch over that center block. Now, what we want to do is be able to stitch around that. So, I'm going to select the cherub and right-click to create an outline. Now, I know we've done this before in different webinars, but the Create Outline function is just so huge. I use it all the time. You can select the distance from the edge of the design. Okay, in this case, it defaults to 0.08 inches. I could say I want that to be, you know, a tenth of an inch. I could put in 0.1. You have the option of doing multiple repeats, joining them, all of that. But right now, we just want to create a simple outline. And outlines, when they are created, are artwork. Okay? So I'm going to click All Right, or OK. And you see the outline in blue around the cherub. If I come over here and select my sequence view on the right-hand side, you can see the different elements that we have showing. Here's our red square, our blue triangles, and then the different colors of our cherub, which does come in grouped because I brought it in from the library. And finally, our artwork outline. So with my outline selected, I'm going to hold down the Control key and either click here in the sequence view, or I could click on it on the screen. Just come over here and click here. Either way, it makes no difference. You will figure out a preference to it as you do it. And then combine these two elements. So I'm combining the artwork that's around the angel with the red background. And there you go. It acts like, I think of it, not because I cook, but because I eat. I think of it as a cookie cutter going through dough, or a biscuit cutter. And so it eliminates everything right around my cherub. And then I have this artwork in the background that, of course, we can change into stitches. So let's look and see, maybe we want to do stippling around that cherub. So I could stipple that part of it. I could change it to advanced stippling or a motif stitch. Oh, let's find a heart in here. I bet we have one. Hopefully it will be, oh, here we go, heart crossover. That might be cute. Let's audition that one. I kind of like that. Okay, so we have little hearts going around our little Valentine cherub. But what I don't like is that we have some skip stitches here in the outline. But we can fix that, okay? And let me show you real quickly how that's done, because I really want to, I know we've talked about outlines versus borders before, but we'll reinforce it with this webinar. I'm going to select the background, the hearts. Again, I want to right-click, and now I have two options. I can create an outline, which is what we did around the cherub, which is artwork, or I can create a border. Now, a border goes both on the inside and the outside. Think of it as the border of a country or a state, or I don't know, we have a city in the middle of Dallas called Highland Park. So if you were going to do a border around Dallas, it would be all around the outside of it, and then again in the middle around this separate city called Highland Park, or Park Cities. So when we do a border, it's going to go around the entire object, and it creates a run stitch. So think of run to the border, okay? Border is a run stitch, outline is artwork. So create border, and now it filled it in with a little border, accenting my cherub, and filling in those gaps and stitches. And I really like that look a little bit better. Okay, so Dory, do we have any questions so far? I'm going to take that as a no.
No, we
Okay,
don't
good.
at this time, but I'm fascinated.
Great.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Can you adjust the size of the hearts behind the cherub?
Oh, absolutely. Good question. Yes,
Thank
you absolutely can. And if you see, I've clicked on that, and I'm going to come over here to pattern up to my properties on the upper right-hand side, and pattern length. It defaults to 10 on these motif fills or advanced stippling fills or patterns, and I'm going to change that whole pattern from a 10, and we'll go crazy, and let's make it a 5 millimeters. That's, I don't know really how big 5 millimeters is, but I know it's half as big as 10 because I can do that math in my head. And we'll see how small that gets. And frankly, that doesn't even look like a heart anymore. So let's go a little bit bigger. Or maybe we'll go a lot bigger. Instead of 10, let's do 20 millimeters. You have complete control over the size of this. So then you have bigger hearts. And maybe we want to go somewhere in between there. Maybe 12 is a good number. And you can do 0.5, but play around with it until you get it exactly the way you want, because you do have control over how big that is.
Now,
good question.
Well, thank you. Our friend Cindy asked, does that also affect the running stitch around the cherub?
No, it doesn't, because if you see here, in the sequence view, the complex fill, which is what we have selected right now, are the hearts. If I select just the run stitch, it's the stitch, hang on one second, and let me change, go into Tools and General Options. Since we're working with red, I'm going to change my view default from a hot pink here to, let's do that yellow. Because I'm not going to use that color tonight, I don't think. Click OK, so we can see what we've selected better. Now, you see the yellow goes around the outer perimeter of the square and around the angel where the border is. And when I select that here, that run stitch, I can look at the properties for the run stitch up here in my properties box on the top right-hand corner. I have a 3.0 stitch length. If I really want to make that stand out a little bit more, I could change that to a beam stitch or even a motif stitch, change the number of times it repeats. I could change the stitch length if I want it 2.5. I have complete control on how this is going to look. And now there's my outline and my cherub.
Excellent.
Okay. Now, the next thing I want to show you with the Combine tool is combining other artwork elements that don't necessarily overlap. For example, I'm going to select these 4 blue-gray corners, and I do want to send them to the back because they're actually on the front of that. Now you can see better that bean stitch going around the little cherub. But let's select them again. And I want to put some kind of stitches in this. So I could put, maybe a contour stitch. My favorite, if anybody's been to one of my seminars, you know, I love Shape Echo. And what I want to do here is use the square on point so that it kind of mimics the square. So it really points your attention to the square. I said that, but you're going, no, it really doesn't, because it looks at each one of these as an individual block or square or piece. So I can show you quickly by looking at over here on the left-hand side, the Shape tool. If I click on that, while I've got this corner selected, you see this pink dot here. That is the center of my shape. If I move that up there and right-click, then it's got a square on point up there. If I was to move that down here to the center, then that's really the look I'm going for. But I would have to do that for each of the 4 corners. And I just think that's a little bit more work than I want to do. So let's undo, put it back where it was initially. Now I'm going to select all 4 corners again and say combine, so that whatever I've put, it looks at those as one element, one object. And, oh, never mind. I had moved that back up here, so it looked as the center is here. So let me move, in fact, let's just undo that. Let's go back, because you won't have that. That was my fault. Let's undo. Oh, and a redo, which is a Control-Y. Okay, now, if I select all 4 corners, one without the Shape tool, just select them. What it did was, because I had moved the center of that, it thought that's where I wanted the center of all of them. But this is what happens when you have a plate with that element and moving the center. I'm going to select to combine all 4. And now each corner is on a diagonal. And if I click on it and look at the Shape tool over here in the top left-hand corner, select that, you will see the pink dot is in the center of the cherub. That is the center of my rectangle, or my square that's on point. Again, I have the ability to change how these stitches look. In this case, it's not a pattern length. I'm going back to my select tool. It's not a pattern length. If I look in my box over here, it is stitch length and density. Okay? The stitch length is however long you want those stitches to be. The density is the distance between those rows of stitches. Right now it's 5 millimeters. I could make that 15. So it's 3 times further apart. So you get that kind of look, which is really probably closer to what I would stitch mine at. Just because if I've got fabric in there with a print, I don't need that much stitching to make it look good. I just want it to quilt nicely. But if I don't like that, I can change that to, something else. Maybe 10 would be a good number. And click apply, and there you go. So, questions on that part, Dory? We've taken
No.
4 elements and 4 piece patches, if you will, and combined them to treat it as one, so that whatever I do to it, it affects all 4 of them at the same time.
That was super clear. Thank you.
Okay, great. Now, let's try this a little bit different way. Let's open up a new page. We're going to do the same type of thing, only this time I'm going to use a backdrop. So this would be a block that I already had made, or maybe it's a quilt block that's in a quilt top that I haven't quilted yet. And I think I'll do this one right here. This is just a picture of a block. I would bring it up as a backdrop. This is in the background. I would want to absolutely come over here to properties and size it perfectly to the size of my actual block, because we want the quilting to fit, right? So if my actual block was 7.75 inches, I would put that in over here and apply.
And we're making this determination finished and unfinished?
Yes, because I think sometimes we have finished blocks that we've decorated and we put into a quilt, and then we want to decorate or quilt around something on it or put a design in. And then perhaps in this block there's already an applique there or another design that I had done, but we're putting it into a block. So it's not a block that has artwork that's already been created, like the one we just did. The one we just did, we took a block from our library and said it's a square on point, and that was artwork that was created. This, we're dealing with a background. This isn't anything I can select. It's just kind of under there as a guide for how to decorate. So let's put a design on it. I'll come back over on the bottom right-hand corner and click my library. Oh, and let's just take this little sheep. It's kind of cute. And put the sheep on there and resize it to fit nicely in that block. This would be cute for a baby's quilt. And we can align it center. Okay. And there you go. Look at him in 3D. He's pretty cute. Now, I don't have any artwork to convert to stitches to go around this lamb. So I have to make that in this case, rather than, since I'm not using a block from the library that's already created, I will create artwork to go around it. In this case, I'll come up here to my artwork tool in the top, select a diamond, and kind of make it about that shape, and then select it. Actually, I'm going to go to the shape tool, because then it puts the nodes there for me, so I can put that exactly where. Now you'll notice we're working with a finished size of the block. It doesn't show the seam allowances on here. So if this was in a quilt, this would be exactly the size of the block. And you can measure that, and I suggest that you do that. And we've created a diamond around it. I'm going to say to fill it and apply, just so we have the visual to see it. And send it, let's select it first, and send it to the back. So now it's underneath my little lamb. Now, what do I need to do to create an outline around the lamb is just select it, right-click, create outline. I can make it however close or far away I want. I'm going to bring this one in a little bit closer. Let's do 0.02. We're going to be real close. And there's my outline that's already selected. I'm going to select the artwork that's behind it and combine. Here's where I put that cookie cutter through the dough. And now I've cut out around my lamb. I can take this artwork and convert it to, oh look, we have Echo Quilting available to us up here in the top left-hand side. I'll select Echo Quilting. And it echoes around that. And of course I wouldn't do it in blue probably. I'm going to make that a, well, we'll just change that blue to a dark green so you can get an idea of what it might actually look like. We'll try that one. And there you go. So even without the other artwork, you can create that. Now, if you're going to do the whole block, we're kind of adding steps on here. Let's go back. I've got this artwork created. I'm going to go, I am going to select a square and a rectangle around this. Okay, so I've got it around the whole thing. And let's fill it so you can see it. All right. And send it a little bit softer. All right. Now, if I select my outline, oh, we don't have that option. Now, why is the artwork around that width? So when we're doing multiple layers, you may have to go back and create another outline because the art is the outline, and do it at 0. Click OK. Then one selected. So you see here artwork outline. Let me go to my sequence like that now. Over in the right-hand side, select backdrop, and the latest thing I created was my artwork outline. I can convert to stitches.
Tamara, you want to move your
again.
You want to move your headpiece because you're getting a little funkiness with your, there you go. Can you move your headpiece?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better? I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. You were going away and we wanted to hear.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You're going in and out. Okay, it seems like we have technical difficulty, and yes, we cannot hear Tamara at this time.
Hello. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you very much. I did get a question from our friend Betty Finney, who would like to know,
yes,
can you do a block like you just did with the sheep, but have a seam allowance built in? So you can do this and have it create the seam allowance on the outside of the square on point. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah, you could actually. So if you wanted to do that first and then piece your block, then all you would do is when you select this part of it, right-click and say create an outline and make it 1/4 of an inch, if that's the seam allowance you want, away from it. and click OK. Now, keep in mind, let me dismiss the backdrop here so we can, and I'm going to, oops, let me slide that over. And let's, hang on, I want to tell this to be quiet. We'll just turn that off for a minute. Okay, so yes, I could do it like that and say create a running stitch that is 1/4 of an inch outside of my block. And what you would do at that point, after you create your outline, come up to the top here and convert the outline, which is artwork, to a run. So then it would stitch that for you and you would know exactly where to cut. Now, if it were me, I would also come back in and say, create borders around this because I want that to be all even. Create a border. So it's on the inside and the outside. And actually at that point, I would say I could measure 1/4 of an inch away and cut that, you know, with my rotary cutter or ruler. So yes, you can do this lots of different ways. Okay. Okay, so that's some of the things with artwork and combining. Now, there's another level that we can take this to that this works in, and it's with your run stitches. So let's create a new page. And sometimes we want to change, and let's talk about just with really kind of quilting and redwork designs right now, we want to change the way that it stitches or the stitches in it. For example, I'm going to come up here to my embellishments on the top and I will select one of my favorites, Elegant number 4, which are elephants. So here's where I say, programmers are good, but they can't spell. So the elegant elephants are the ones I want to use, and they're adorable. And I do want to point out to you that whenever you bring in an embellishment design, there are 2 elements to that. One of the ones that are built into the Quilt Embellisher software. There are 2 elements. There is the design right here. I don't like that yellow now. That are all of your run stitches, and then there's the outline artwork. Originally, when this software was developed, it did not include the ability to create an outline. Now we have that, so you can use it if you want to, or just get rid of it if you don't need it. All right, so what I want to do with this, and when I select a run stitch here, I first, because it was brought in as an embellishment, hang on just a minute, I'm going to change my color back again because that yellow doesn't show up well. I'm going into my general options view and change that color to turquoise. I like that one. Okay, now we can see it a little bit better. So we have a color and it's selected, or I can ungroup it up here because it came in grouped and look at the individual stitches. It's a standard run that is one, if you look over here, I'm sorry, in the top right hand corner in the properties box, it's 1.8 millimeters long. Now, it's a standard run. I really want these cute elephants to stand out, so I want to make them 2-ply. All right, so here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to select the whole thing. All right, and then I come over to my properties box and change that, and I have all these different options. I could make that crazy quilting or a motif stitch, but I think they have too much detail for that. Let's just do a 2-ply stitch. And I may want to make it a little bit longer. Let's do a 2 millimeter stitch on that. And you can adjust that however you want. If you want really short stitches and a lot of them, that's great. If you want longer stitches so it shows more thread, that's good too. It's entirely up to you. and play around with the different options. Now I'm going to apply that. Wow, that doesn't look very good because all of a sudden we have all these jump stitches in there. Do you see what happened there? It just, if I look at it in 3D, in 3D view over here on the left-hand side, it'll show me a little better, but I don't like all those jump stitches. Here's where I go consult my favorite icon, the Combine tool. I'm going to select all of this again and say, hey, can you combine this to make it path right? Because the Combine tool is Combine Selected Paths. Make it one path. Click Combine. And depending on the complexity of the design, it may take it more or less time. So give it a minute. It's working for you, not against you. And look what happens.
Oh, cool.
It's magic. Isn't that cool? All jump stitches go away. And now we're left with a 2-ply design that stitches out beautifully. Now, if we go back, here's what we had before with all those jump stitches. And they're not trims at this point because you can see, let's take off the 3D, you can see where the dotted lines are. These are trims, okay, that go from the eyeball to the eyeball to the eyeball, you know, of the elephant. Those are trims. But these are jump stitches, and they're not pretty. So once you do the Combine tool, those go away. So this is what I've started doing with a lot of things, is I will select it, make changes to it, and then combine it. Even in cases where I've had designs that, you know, there was a single run in parts of it and a double run in other parts of it, and I didn't like that, if I take and make the whole thing a 2-ply or a double run, that's the same thing, and then change that back to a single run or a standard and apply, then it uses the new pathing on that. And the path, okay, for those of you who, and Dory, help me out here if I don't make it really clear. Pathing is the way that it's going to stitch out so that things are connected that should be connected and you don't have lots of jump stitches. And the computer, a computer is always really good about doing that, much better than, for some people, they'll do that when they digitize, and that's the sign of a really good digitizer who understands pathing and how it goes. But I'm not one of those people necessarily, so I use the Combine tool to help me with that problem.
I think
so let's do,
I think that's a good interpretation of it.
Okay, good. So let's try it on another one. Let's open up a new one, and I'm going to take an existing quilt design. Let's go to quilt motifs. And I'm just going to pick something out of here. Let's see. Let's take this one. That's a pretty design. I'm just going to drag it in. Okay, and this is a lovely design. And when I click on it, it tells me in the properties box that it's a standard run stitch of 3.3 millimeters. Now, if I want to make that stand out more, or if I want to put several of these together and repath it, I can do that. So I'm going to take this design, I'm going to copy it and paste it, and then I'm going to, that one didn't, flip it, and to move it so it stays in line with the other one, I'm going to hold down my Control key and my Shift key because it takes bigger steps that way. And just use my down arrow. If I hold down just my Control key, it does little bitty steps. If I do Control Shift, it does big steps. So I'll get it exactly where I want it. There I'm using just the control key. And this one, it's not bad. You have a little jump stitch from here to here. But I can, by selecting these and combining them, get rid of that jump stitch. And you know, this really will improve the quality of your stitching, especially with quilting, because we like that either single or double or even a bean stitch, but we want it to be consistent without jump stitches and knots on the back of our quilts and all that kind of thing. So there you go. My jump stitch is gone. This looks beautiful. Even if you had 3 or 4 of them, you know, it would work out perfectly. Again, I could take this and change it to a 2-ply if I want that to be a little bit more bold on my quilt. Click Apply so that it's a double run. I've got 2 layers of thread, but the good thing about it is it goes back in the exact same hole because the embroidery machine's doing it, not my hand and my eyes. It's much more accurate than I can be. And this takes just a second. And there you go. Now we have a bean stitch, a 2-ply stitch. And this one actually turned out really well. I don't have the jump stitches like you do sometimes when you change it. So feel free to be creative and combine and put things together, elements together, or change the stitch type on them, but use the combine tool to go back and clean up your work, if you will. So what questions do we have, Dory?
Well, we have one gal who would like us to show her how to use the fabrics.
Oh, so, okay.
Can you put right in the middle of that little bouquet?
Actually, I'm going to go somewhere else and do that.
Okay.
Because I have a method to my madness. I want to show you that in both my block piecer and my quilt planner, you have that combine tool. Okay. So if all you have is quilt planner and you're bringing in different designs, you can combine them. And you can combine other elements in there so that it works just like what I showed you in Quilt Embellisher. But you have to bring in the designs from somewhere. You can't create your own. I'm in block piecer right now, and I'm going to bring up a quilt block. And I'll show you one other aspect of the combine tool with this. I'm going into 4-patch. I'll do mini 4-patch, and I'm going to take mini 4-patch number 15 right here. Okay, now this block, let's put some fabric in it. I've got these 2 patches here that are gold, so or kind of the colors that I'm painting the walls in my house. And I'm going to select my fabric up here, the icon in the top left-hand corner right next to the blocks. The first time you select it, when you bring it up, it takes it a little bit longer than other times. And here's my fabric collection. I have all of this. Boutique textiles, I have, which I love, and just a whole gaba moda in here. Tons of stuff. And of course, you can download your own. But let's go back to okay, here, we'll do these. I love this polka dot. I'm going to pick this polka dot fabric here for the yellow. And then I'm going to select my 2 purple pieces. And we'll do this blue in the background. I love that. Okay, so now I want to show you something, and I'm going to show you another chance to combine pieces. I'm going to select this whole block, and if I go to my workflow tool up here in the top left-hand corner and click workflow, and then click auto build, you see I've got 4 patches to this block. I have the 2 blue pieces and then the 2 polka dot pieces. I'm going to auto build, Then when I go to preview, I end up with two designs because these are two different pieces. So there's one to add the sides on and then one to put them together. I want to do things fast and efficient and create time because I never have enough time for anything I want to do. So let's go back. I'm going to close out of this and I'm going to select this patch and this patch, the two polka dot pieces, going to combine them. Now let's select the whole block. Go back to our workflow tool, click on that up here at the top because just because it's on the screen, you can't just save it and it stitch out. You got to create the design to stitch it. So I'm going to go to my workflow tool. Now you'll notice I just have 3 patches. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Even though there's a line there, it sees it just as one patch. Now, when I auto build and preview, I have one design. So I just saved myself some time there. And some fabric because I don't have that seam allowance in the middle. And some cutting. So that's another place where the combine tool comes in handy. Other questions, Dory?
You have to do the workflow first, then the auto build, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to, once you come in, I always do, here's the sequence. And this is in, I think, the first webinar that we did on block piecer going back to August or September sometime. If you want to go step by step through it. If you take and select your entire block, and it doesn't have to have fabrics in it. I just put fabrics in because we had that question and I love that fabric. And select the entire block and then select our workflow tool. We do the workflow first to create the design. Okay, and then click auto build and it will build it. And then if you preview it, you can see what the design looks like and then save it. And that is the file that you will use to stitch out this block. Now, we always build it first. Just a quick review here. We always build it first, and then we use the cutter. I haven't had McAfee for 2 years. I think I need to undo that. And then we use the cutter tool. So with the block still selected, then we would go cut it. We have to build it first in case we decide to change the sequence of the numbers or we have it resequenced in the order in which it's stitching. That's why we do the workflow first, then we do the cutting. Just kind of a little side thing, which has nothing to do with combine. But anyway, any other questions?
No, I think we're all just about caught up.
Okay, great. Combine tool is your best friend who cleans up your messes for you. So use it and play with it. It does so many things. It's similar to group, but not exactly like group. Group just keeps things together. Combine actually changes them into one. Okay, so that's the difference in those.
Thank you very much, Tamara, and I hope everybody enjoys and tries practicing the combine tool.
I do too, and thank you so much. And if y'all have any questions, and by the way, can I do a little commercial here for just a second?
Sure.
I am so excited. We have our big national dealer convention this week in Las Vegas. I'm not excited about well, I am a little, but anyway, we're introducing a lot of new things to the dealers, and they will all be coming out to to all of you consumers very soon. One of them that we're going to be talking about is our new seminar. We've had the Hooping Clinic, and we've had the embroidery and quilting mixer, and now we have embroidery techniques from A to Z, which is a different seminar than what you've seen before. So stay tuned and look for it at a dealer near you coming up really soon. It's going to be fun.
Super. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Tamara. Have
Thank
a
you,
good
and thanks
evening.
for all the moderators. Good night.